Welcome to the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Grodoff, along with my wife, Gina. Our goal is to give voice to the hidden mind of obsessive-compulsive disorder, better known as OCD. In this podcast, we are interviewing yet another person dealing with OCD either professionally or personally. So stay with us for this impactful conversation. We would love to have your comments or to have you as a guest, or if you wish to tell your OCD or anxiety story, please visit us at invisiblewheelchair.com. So let's find out more about who we're interviewing today. And today we're doing something a little different on the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. Instead of interviewing somebody, I'm going to play an interview that Gina and I did on a podcast called No More Meds, which is hosted by Corinne Weaver, Dr. Corinne Weaver, who has a practice called Upper Cervical Wellness Center. And so this was done in May of 2022, and I wanted to share it because it talks about what we do and some different things about what Dr. Corinne does also. So let's get to that interview now. Thanks. Now, before we get to that interview, let's hear a word about our sponsor.
Today I'm here to talk about Q Science's sleep spray. Q Sciences has a number of different sprays. There's a melatonin sleep spray that contains melatonin, 5-HTP, and L-theanine. We've used other melatonin products to help our children with falling asleep. Melatonin is something that occurs naturally in our body that helps us quiet and calm down for sleep. And yet I really feel like I've seen a difference in the spray versus other products. Our youngest is here to talk about it. What things did you like better about the spray versus the other things?
I don't like the chew tablets because they leave like a weird taste, and they're mainly like they also have like you get bits in your teeth.
Okay, so Q Science's spray.
It's a lot better, I'd say. The taste is pretty decent and it works well.
Okay. I'm happy with the quality of these products and how they're helping our whole family. If you'd like to learn more,
simply go to qsciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. That's the letter Q, sciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com, or visit invisiblewheelchair.com and find out more information there.
There are a lot of supplement products out there, yet you want one that's of good quality. Check out Q Sciences for your family.
And now let's get to that interview.
Welcome to the No More Meds podcast with Dr. Corinne Weaver. Are you stressed out because you keep getting sick and don't know what steps to take? Are you sick of not getting answers from your doctor and always needing to take drugs? How would your life be different if you were healthy? Be inspired and stay tuned for some practical solutions for healthy living.
All right. I am so excited today to do another No More Meds podcast. It's been a while, listeners, since I've been on, and I apologize for that, but I was waiting for some really good speakers. And today I have an amazing team, a husband and wife team, who is Donald and Gina Grodoff. They are proud parents of 3 children. Just 3? Why'd you stop at 3? We'll get into that story in just a minute. Donald is an author, speaker, therapist, an EFT practitioner and behavioral transformational specialist. And Gina is an occupational therapist. She's a writer, homeschooler, child-led learning coach, and behavioral transformation specialist. That's a lot of stuff going on, guys. I can't wait to hear about all that. Along with the joys and challenges of everyday parenting, the Grodoff family has experienced issues with mental illness, including a sudden personality and behavioral change in their children, which led them down a long, traumatic, and difficult journey. With many mistakes made along the way, Gina and Don found that they have listened to and take the advice of the professionals, but needed to modify it and fit their values and with their beliefs. Through these modifications, they've developed techniques and resources for helping other families find their way through their issues and begin with their practice. Then it's called Focus Healthy Family, and it's in Charlotte, North Carolina. Donna and Gina and share their journey, and they're going to share some experiences, their knowledge and practice through their podcast. They have 2 podcasts. I know you mentioned one, but here we have Focus Healthy Family Podcast. That's the other one. Didn't you say there was another one, Don?
Invisible Wheelchair.
Okay, and the Invisible Wheelchair. I say Donna. I'm going to call you Don. Okay, so my dad's name.
To the therapist, and I changed genders apparently too along the way. So this is really good.
So my dad is named Donald, okay? And I always call him Dad. And I'm in my head, I want to say Dad or something else. So I'm going to call you Don, all right? So Don and Gina are passionate about helping parents become the parents they imagine themselves to be. I am so excited to have you guys on my show today for many reasons. I have 3 children as well, and I share in my No More Meds book the challenges of having 3 children. And so I think the way that you guys have learned through your experiences, so many parents today can learn as well. So what would you guys like to share? There's so many things, but I know we have a few minutes. So Don and Gina, whoever wants to start first.
So much to share. Where to begin? Since your podcast is called No More Meds, I'll just touch base on my own personal past. Before I found chiropractic, I had frequent sinus infections. I was a frequent visitor to urgent care, digestive stuff, right? I used to go to the doctor all the time. And between diet change, finding chiropractic care, I think when I had my first child, it really pushed me into even more healthy lifestyle. Just thinking about him as I was pregnant, and then our food choices after he was born.
Well, yeah, I remember one of the things you said to me was and this is before the first child was born, is that I'm not going to feed him crap, and I'm, and we're going to, do this in a more natural way with kind of the rules that were set up, I guess.
Yeah, I have kind of a healthier background than you do. So my mom is a 2nd generation Italian American. So I laugh when I hear about, the Mediterranean diet. It's like, yeah, this is what I grew up on. There were always 2 vegetables at dinner and 1 was green. So, I grew up with a pretty healthy lifestyle, yet, processed foods got added at more and more. There probably weren't nearly as many when I was a kid. And, our first child loved all kinds of foods and ate healthy stuff. And then our second child, she could live on French fries.
So are you calling the fact that I grew up with 2 brothers and a dad who worked at bakeries and brought home bread, and
it was a different lifestyle.
White bread on top of it,
Oh yeah, was it the bunny bread that you could squish?
No, ours was Wonder Bread.
Oh, Wonder Bread. Yeah, that was better.
2 brothers worked at the Wonder Bakery factory, or whatever you want to call it, and my dad worked at Kroger baking. So we got bread that was still steaming in the package, but it was white bread, which we now know the.
Not that my family, dessert is a whole course, Italian tradition. And I remember one holiday, someone brought 1 dessert. I'm like, you're kidding me, that's it? And they cleaned their food and put it away quickly. I'm like, we're Italians, we eat all day long. We don't ever put the food away.
Well, and so, we kind of have morphed that into, working with our family and in more natural ways, natural births and things like that. And now in our practice, we like to think of ourselves as helping families get past behavioral issues, anxiety issues, using some more natural processes. Not that we're against the other options, but we really want to help people to get better in a more natural way.
Right. Yeah, if we go back to, so life was going along, pretty typical parenting lifestyle. Our daughter was 8 and her older brother was 12. And then our youngest, she was
1.5, something like that.
They're 7 years apart. She was a year old. And she's the one that had this sudden personality change, behavior, just went from this easygoing child to
a middle child.
Extreme fear and anger, and we realized it was severe obsessive compulsive disorder, which is far more than what you can imagine and what most people think of it as. It's a severe anxiety with compulsions that took up hours of her day.
Well, pretty much closed our life down. It takes over, especially as severe as it was.
Right. It took a lot of time and energy, and we went through a lot of trying to figure things out. We reached out to natural health practitioners first. We did a lot of different.
We did hypnotherapy. We've done neural development.
The EFT we used because you were already an EFT practitioner. That's kind of what propelled you into pursuing that more.
The alpha stim. We used to, the thing I've learned with people that are dealing with the same thing is they're grasping for any kind of miracle that might be the one thing that'll do it, And so you're trying this and you're trying that and you're trying, and of course the money goes out with that too as you're doing that, And through that we were able to find some really good, legitimate resources to help us that have helped us through this.
Yeah, and what we found we had to do a combination of things. We had to listen to the doctor and get understanding there. We had to look at nutrition, which typical, goes beyond what a regular nutritionist or a hospital trained nutritionist, exercise, all these different alternative modalities. And we realized that, no one was pulling it all together. And that's one thing that we advocate with the families we work for is, it took a lot of time and energy for us to dig through all those things. And, we kind of finally realized that there was a piece missing in all of that. We were doing supplements, and then when things got really bad, we did have to start medication for her because we felt like, okay, we've exhausted other things, just needing to try whatever we can, but continuing lots of supplements and other things. But there was still that missing piece.
And that's working with the whole family.
And communication being a big part of that, and that how we spoke to her, how we handled her flare-ups and her rage made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Did it come about after the third kid?
Yes.
Yeah. Like I said,
it kind of started like looking back on it and seeing the early signs that I kind of missed at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I know around when I was pregnant, because she went from this whatever child who wasn't afraid to leave my side, went to sleepovers at age 5 without a problem.
Carefree.
And when I was pregnant with the third child, so she was 6, she became fearful. She had trouble doing a sleepover. I had to pick her up from it. She just kind of had some fears. And I kind of thought it was just a little bit of separation anxiety, kind of a normal thing. And because I was pregnant, so I didn't put a lot into it. Of course, when I look back on it, I'm like, that was a big enough change, for my child.
Well, and then we did, with the third child, we did a natural birth at home.
Yeah, we did a home birth.
And they all were there for it and watching and being part of it. And I think there was some
a bit of a trigger there. Yeah. I should have realized her personality. My oldest was there when when the second one was born, and his personality, we were in the hospital with a nurse practitioner, nurse midwife. And he was like cool with it, but realizing she processed things with emotions much more than he did. For him, it was just like, oh, this is interesting. This is what's happening.
Well, he stood there most of the time with,
right,
with the mouth open, just stare like, oh my God, I can't believe what's going on,
And for her, it was overwhelming. Our family was kind of like, not like, oh, if you're going to do that, my parents were like, I don't know if I want to be there. It's like, okay, well then don't, be here. Just having the home birth thing sent a bit of our family into panic.
Hey, I did 3 of those. I get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did 3 different. We did the hospital with the OB, then we did the hospital, but with a nurse midwife, and then I went to the home birth. So 3 different experiences. But it was a 7-year gap between child 2 and child 3. Mm-hmm. So I kind of expected it to be easy, like my second birth, and it was kind of like your body starts over. So it was sort of a difficult labor anyhow. And
well, that's kind of neat. Like you're saying, looking back, kind of similar, a lot of I don't know if it's called a middle child syndrome or whatever, but you do hear that about middle child, and so I have 3 as well. So I can almost kind of relate. It's my middle child that has the most difficult, but she's doing great now, but I did, like you guys, learned a lot. So, but there was a shift after that 3rd child with what happened with her. And then trying to climb yourself out of everything. It sounds like it's so chaotic. And now you've had some time. From that period to now,
Right. She's
Dawn,
20.
you have a little gray hair, Dawn. So there's been a little bit of time.
I had to point that out, didn't you?
And I've covered mine.
My name is Donna.
So there's some time in between where you've learned all these things. What would you say that the parents, I know you guys offer an amazing class that we're going to get to later. But what was the click in you that kind of made some traditions that you needed some help and, where to go, that made them the biggest change for your family?
Well, I think it was just, the first child that went through it, the middle child that went through it, it was, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a journey through hell. It was a really, really tough time. She was angry and abusive, like to me, verbally, and she was even trying to kind of scratch and kick and all that.
Yeah. But
we'd go through battles at 2 o'clock in the morning sometimes, or we'd go, and they would be 3 to 4 hour battles. And there was one time I remember she'd go in the bathroom to wash. She felt like she had to wash hands. That was one of her things. And she would destroy the bath. Well, not destroy it, but she would like spill soap all over the floor and try to slide and fall and do all kinds. And just, it was, so at some point we got to a point where we realized how much it was affecting us and the family.
Well, yeah, it kind of crept up on us and just kind of threw everything in turmoil. Our oldest, luckily, was 12 and pretty independent. But I know it affected our youngest, who also suffers with obsessive compulsive disorder, which is kind of common to be genetically linked, but as well as growing up with that. And just realizing, I remember when we were in the middle of things, watching videos of my older 2 when they were little. I'm like, what happened to our family? we had our challenges, but we had fun together. And Kate, it was like, by the time we got her to sleep, because her going to sleep was a big issue, we were exhausted, right? And then it was like, oh my gosh, you wake up and you start it over again. And
and sometimes it was going, for myself, I know, well, both of us really, getting to bed finally at 3 o'clock after we, and sometimes it was on the couch and I'd have to like almost hold her down until she passed out.
Wow.
And 3 o'clock in the morning, I crawled, silently crawl back upstairs to try to go back to sleep. And like 6 o'clock, there'd be this screaming from downstairs going, who left me here? And it all started all over again.
She'd often wake up, and by hold her down, you were sitting with her to help keep her calm.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't strap her down or anything like that, but it just, sometimes I'd have to just be there and kind of stay with her till she went to sleep, and that wasn't easy.
I think you were kind of asking about what was the switch, that got us on a different path.
Do you guys have OCD? You said maybe it could be genetic. You see it in grandparents or?
Yeah, I do see it some there. I suffer with depression and kind of bipolar 2, where there's hypomania with my depression. So we definitely have family history of different mental illnesses on both.
My family is perfectly normal.
Right, of course.
But just seeing it in 2 siblings, like realizing that's actually kind of common. I'm on a list with other parents of kids with OCD.
Did you know it was OCD at the time? Did it?
No,
she was overwashing her hands like around age 6. And I have a friend with diagnosed OCD, and she suggested it could be that. At that time, she was just overwashing her hands, had a little bit of fears, but it wasn't, it was manageable. It was maybe, 10 minutes of washing or 15 minutes compared to the 3 hours that it turned into. And that stereotype of obsessive compulsive disorder is someone who's neat and organized and puts things in order. So our oldest child is that child who likes things in order. He would line his toys up, didn't really want to play with them like making the train track. It was making the train track and having things in place. And so he kind of had that tendency, his personality, of just being hyper organized about things, having kind of rituals, wanting things a certain way, right? So because of that stereotype, even though I've had training in mental health as an occupational therapist, I didn't, associate that until it became severe. And then it was like, okay, because I had that background, I realized what it was. I did more reading on it, did more research on it to discover that. Because of that, I've been a huge advocate, and I call people out when they use OCD as an adjective, or they use it to describe someone who just is anal. They're a neat freak or whatever, right? When it's a disorder, it consumes hours of time. It takes away from your functioning. I mean, she literally would take 2-hour showers. There was a point where she was taking 2 and 3 showers a day. So this is like hours of time that it's robbing from her life. That it's really.
I'm glad you're making the distinction, because there is a lot of people, like you said, that just like, oh, he's got a little OCD, washes his hands, keep things clean. But there is totally where it is, like you said, taking over your life. Washing your hands for 2 or 3 hours, taking a shower. Now that's different than, just being neat and clean with Legos, right?
Well, and it takes over their life, and they have the worst of it.
Right.
But it also takes over we kind of folded in our lives too.
Yeah, my youngest, we couldn't, because we're a homeschooling family, we couldn't get out and do things because of it. It kept us from going places, so it affected.
Well, and she stopped dance, she stopped scouts, and for myself, I was volunteering, doing some scouting stuff with my son, and I had to back off a lot of that, a good bit of it.
Yeah, I had to back off volunteer work I was doing, right? So it when we go to therapists and they'd focus on the child, it's like it was disrupting the whole family. And that's the whole family dynamic.
And that's kind of why we pinpoint that in what we're doing, is that we're not just working on the one person, we're trying to help the whole family.
Right. Yeah. People often come to us when they've tried lots of usually there's one child they're really struggling with, and they've tried lots of different things. And that's when they typically come to us. And, they usually have some awareness. Okay, there's more going on here than just my child has an issue. But we really, we bring into the whole family, the communication, the dynamics.
That's why I love your program. I think that's great, because a lot of people don't think about the whole family and how it can affect, because it's like, oh, well, let's, traditional medicine would be like, well, let's just give her a drug and hopefully everybody will be all good. Right. And so we know that's not the full answer, but trying to do, like you said, it may be multiple things you have to do as a family to get the family unit normally functioning again.
Yeah. She went to, ERP is the standard therapy treatment for obsessive compulsive disorder. So she was doing that. We were doing supplements. We did a diet change. We were going to a naturopathic doctor. We tried chiropractic with her. I mean, we were doing a lot of things all together. And, but, there was still this chaos in our life. And that's where we really realized we needed to make this shift. And I remember the first time we had dinner, and we could just hang out after dinner, and we had like this extra time. And it's like we didn't go from dinner to chaos. And it's just like, wow, this is nice. This is
well. And then now, the second one went into it. And I can remember when that happened, the one night she woke up and really believed that somebody had broken in and taken a couple of her stuffed animals.
Yeah, she used to have to.
And start screaming about it. And I remember thinking, oh my God, not again. I can't do this again, but we have. And we're still kind of working on it, but there's a lot to it. We kind of also, when it happened, I kind of thought, well, hey, we did this before. We should be able to get this under control.
Right,
and on,
right. We had an older child deal with this. So,
but that wasn't true.
It manifests differently, in different kids. We all have different body makeups and personality types, and the family dynamic kind of, she kind of grew up with a bit of trauma from a very young age that impacted her. And
Well, and well, OCD is the type too that morphs and changes, and when you get one thing settled out, boom, the next thing it pops up with something else, and you just it's like what is that game?
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole, you know, where
you manage this obsessive thought and these compulsions, but then it turns into this thought and compulsions, and the further. I realize now that's why I want to advocate for parents to identifying it early is the worse it gets, the harder it is to combat it. Just more time it can take, the more difficult it can be. Whereas realizing it early on and getting the right treatment can prevent it maybe from getting worse. Although,
I mean, yeah, definitely knowing. Hold on for 1 second. Did I lose you guys? Did I lose you?
No, we're still here.
Oh, you're still there? Okay, my screen just disappeared. That's all.
Okay.
All right. Hold on. Are you sure you're there?
Yeah, we're here. I hope
okay, there you are. All right. That was super weird. My screen completely just blacked out and it said log back in, but you guys are here. Okay, anyway. Well, like the editing guy will come right back into that. So let me see what was my train of thought there.
Well, in the
IOCD,
on the foundation's website, the IOCDF Foundation, International OCD Foundation's website, they said they compared it to a mosquito bite.
Oh,
OCD.
wow.
He said you get the bite and you scratch it to try because you want to get rid of it, or
it's itchy.
It's itchy, but it just makes it worse.
Yeah, the more you scratch it, the more
and that's
itchy
really
it
what
is.
with OCD, they get a thought and they believe they have to do some kind of action,
Compulsion.
a compulsion to try to stop the thought. And
Right.
it does initially, it will a little bit, like when you're scratching it, it feels better, like the mosquito bite.
Right.
But as soon as you let go, it itches even more. And that's
the more you engage in
and
the
it just
compulsion,
becomes a cyclical, really just the thoughts get heavier, deeper. And with our daughter, I remember it was darker too. They were,
wow.
threatening
Deeper into
her.
that brain. Now, what books did you guys enjoy reading that were helpful?
Books.
Well, there's workbooks. There's OCD workbook.
Yeah, there's a workbook
good.
for kids that we got. It might even be called OCD workbook.
And then there's the OCD Hill. What's that?
Up and Down the Worry Hill is a great book for younger kids. There's quite a few different
I didn't think about bringing
books out there with resources.
Look around. I'm sure there's some books laying right there.
Well,
we do. We have literally stacks and stacks of books here. Because
I know, like John Hirschfield does a book about an OCD workbook that's really good, and I believe he's even got one that ties in. You have ERP is this kind of gold standard, I guess, exposure response prevention, but they also tie in ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy. And the two of those play really well together. And I know there's a workbook out there that combines those two together. And I believe it's John Hirschfield's one of his that does it.
Right. Yeah.
And do y'all have a workbook? I mean, I know you're saying that you have a program coming up. It's called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. Is that a workbook as well that you explain to me a little bit about that program?
Yeah, sure. That is based on a book written by Adele Faber and Elaine Maslish that they originally published in the early 1980s and has since been republished multiple times. So it's a program that they created. So we facilitate their program with that class, but it is a great class for just basic communication skills. It's geared towards parents and kids, yet a lot of the skills translate into everyday communication with people, being a better listener and what does it mean to really listen? What does that look like? And when we want people to follow through with what we say, when we want our kids to cooperate and listen and engage them. So it's a great program. So that's kind of part of our bigger program, utilizing their book and their workbook that comes with it. So when we do our class, you get the workbook and it's a lot of hands-on.
Well, because I kind of had to learn it, and maybe it was because of me. We kind of learned that how important communication is in what we went through with our kids. Because when my middle daughter would come at me and be screaming at me or, saying things to me, I would tend to match it. I'd be coming right back at her, and then we just end up, I always say, crawling the wall to the ceiling with anxiety and anger and all this. And it didn't help. It just got us deeper and worse into it. And the battles would turn into 3 to 4 hours of battling. And I had to learn, and like we both did, I shouldn't say, but I mean, I know for myself, I had to learn to be able to control myself, keep myself at a calm place, so that this may rise up on the other side. Her side may go up some, but it doesn't go to the extreme it does. And by communicating properly with her, I was able to stop these battles turning into hours of battling, and sometimes bringing it down to 15 to 20 minute, more of a conversation than a battle.
Right. Yeah, I had found this book early on when my oldest was a baby. He's 24 now. And so we kind of knew some of these communication skills. We had this background. I did a lot of research when I became a parent, just reading lots of different parenting books in general, and have over the years, and really looking at the relationship with our children. So that was kind of ingrained in me. And then when we were thrown into this situation where life was a little more hectic and chaotic, and we had gotten kind of away from those things, we're just trying to get through the day, trying to manage. We realized, coming back to that was a huge help.
Well, yeah, I can still remember, there was a couple of times where, it was 9 o'clock, we were getting them food, snack or something before bed kind of thing. And you look at your clock and you go, oh, it's 9 o'clock and we didn't have it. We're making it. We're going to make it to the, and then of course there would be something that sometimes would throw that off, but yeah, it was that very chaotic and not the best of times.
Yeah, we kind of, because we tried a lot of different things. I have to say early on, I didn't want to label her. I didn't like labeling my children. So even though it looked like OCD, I didn't want to label that. And we didn't go to, we actually found a therapist before we even found a psychiatrist. But even before we did that, we were trying the supplements without labeling. And unfortunately, I realized with something like obsessive compulsive disorder, especially, it helps to identify it, because the child realizes these thoughts and these compulsions are unreasonable. So they know that it's unreasonable, and yet they can't stop it. So by not identifying what it was, she just thought she's crazy.
Yeah.
What's, and so it's, that was kind of a big first step in acknowledging that, to realize that, this is not you. You have an illness.
Yeah. And they don't, and too, like a lot of people that have it don't realize they have it. Like, I know therapists sometimes walk around it because they don't want to be like, do you not realize you have OCD? A lot of them don't even really realize it until it's like, like you said, is how you speak about it, how you come across it, and then kind of having that open communication where you can accept it. This is the way it is, and here are some steps to live with it. So this program that you guys offer, how many weeks?
It's a 6-week program.
The workshop is a 6-week workshop. It's designed as 6 2-hour classes, and we've been doing it on Zoom, but it's a small group of maybe 8-10 other people, parents or sometimes couples. And so we give it information for each chapter, and then we do exercises with role plays and different kind of exercises. So it's very hands-on and practicing the skills, because like learning anything new, you got to practice, right? It's a different way of thinking about things and talking to your kids. And so it's so important to practice that. So we do that. That's kind of our communication skills program. And we follow their guidelines because it's their program. And then we work one-on-one with families as well. And we're developing our second kind of a deeper level program.
And another thing that I found, and I don't know if you've noticed this while you're working with kids, is that the parents are usually awesome. Like they're not considered bad parents. You know what I mean? Like, so the kid will come in and they have like all these anger issues, and they're so just say hateful things, like right. And, me being as a chiropractor, I will see some of these kids say some hateful things to their parents. And I'm like, how can that even be possible? She's like the sweetest lady ever, and usually these parents are so super sweet and they're doing everything like you guys, everything you can for your children. And they are just like, have this anger. So it's not only just healing for the children, but trying to get these parents to figure out how to talk because they've lost it. Like a lot of them just take the bullets and the bricks thrown at them every day because they don't know how to handle it and they don't want to get in a 5-hour discussion, right, Doc? They just kind of just like ignore it. Some of them, I've seen this, and it's sad because the kids just walk all over them.
Right. And you can ignore it and not, that way you can just kind of placate them and try to please them, which with OCD just makes that worse.
Right. Right. Buy them more things. That'll fix the problem. Yeah.
Or you can fight it and resist them and cause, more flare-ups. And we did all 3 different things. And then, the balance is really recognizing, if they're flaring up, they're angry, there's stuff going on. Right. And we need, I say, kids don't engage in behaviors just to irritate us. There's always a reason for the behavior. There's always an underlying reason. And so it's our job to kind of help figure that out, to help understand if they're angry and they're saying hateful things, there's something going on underneath that.
We with the line we always use is behavior is
like a foreign language.
Foreign language. It's really about communicating an underlying problem.
Right. Well, I appreciate you guys so much for being on the show today. Is there anything else that you would like to add? I'm going to definitely send some information to the patients and the listeners so they can find you and get on this program, because you guys don't do this all the time. Y'all are just starting this new program coming up. Didn't you say April 10th?
Well, the workshop we've been doing for a couple of years now. So our next one starts Sunday, April 10th. We're doing a Sunday afternoon time slot. And then what we've done, because we've had some busy parents who say, I can't spare 2 hours. We split it into 2 1-hour sessions. So we do that Tuesdays and Thursdays over lunch, Eastern time, 12 to 1. So we have that one coming up starting the 19th of April. But
there's two of them
coming up, yes. But we've been running that program for a while. What we're growing is the extension. We've worked one-on-one with several clients, but we're growing kind of a bigger program to be part, so that the communication is part of a larger program. We have our own podcast that we launched in January. Once a month, we've been having a conversation with Ray Gray, who is a mental health coach. And we kind of have these candid conversations at the first Monday of every month at noon on Zoom. And we stream it on Facebook and kind of having conversations around different topics.
Yeah, it's under our Facebook, Focus Healthy Family Facebook page.
I mean, it's definitely been an issue for a long time, but since the last couple of years, talk about anxiety and mental health is just through the roof. And it's just, the more you look into it, you can get sad and depressed about it. But there's people like you, and there's definitely people that we can reach out. And so that's the whole reason of having you on the show. Because when people listen to this, I want to give them opportunities to go somewhere so they don't have to continue to deal with that on a daily basis.
And the thing I would say is that for parents is that one is that not to beat yourself up about stuff. Mm-hmm. It's a trial and error thing sometimes almost in
parenting.
And you try to find all the resources, you do the best you can, but I know I think we both kind of went through it. Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the wrong thing? Are we messing our kid up? You can't question yourself like that.
You're doing the best you can with the information you have. And I can look back and go, I wish I had done this. I wish, yet that doesn't get us anywhere. So, accepting where you're at and forgiving yourself.
And taking care of yourself too. Yeah. That's another thing we had to step back from. You get so wrapped into all your attention going to this child or the children, that you forget about yourselves, and pretty soon you get that burnout place where you're not helpful to anybody. And so you have to really, really step back and be able to take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's a lot of caregivers right now, with people being sick. And even if you are a caregiver, a lot of them just don't take care of themselves. And you need to take that time for yourself to be able to help others. That's a big lesson to learn.
It sure is. Yep.
Well, I appreciate it so much. Well, you guys have a good rest of the day. And I know that people are going to benefit from listening to this show. And I'm going to just get the word out there on how they can sign up with the workshop so they can live somewhat of a normal life, Don, a little bit of a normal life, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Yeah, thanks,
we
Glenn.
love talking about it. And if, when we share things, if it even helps one parent, I feel it's a success. So appreciate you having us.
Exactly. All right. Thank you.
This concludes this podcast. We hope you will subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, we would love your comments, or if you have a story to tell, we want to put it up on the podcast. Simply go to invisiblewheelchair.com to do that. Don't forget to like us on Facebook at Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest, we love guests. So simply go to invisiblewheelchair.com and contact us from there. Gina and I are here to help you or your family get to a better place naturally. Simply visit focusedhealthyfamily.com for more information. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Keep tapping and focusing forward for a better way.